From Los Angeles, California, this is Brett Gaffney. Welcome back to A Word Before We Leave. Today, we are doing things a little differently. Normally, if you've been a part of the show or seen the show before, normally we interview people and build them up to a point where they would share a word before they leave. Today, we're doing it differently, as this is the first episode of the solo show that guy's running. A Word Before We Leave presents Words I Wish I Knew. Today's word of the day is breakups. Merriam-Webster's dictionary definition of breakup is as follows. It has two definitions when it comes to the loss of romantic love. So I'll give both of the definitions. To cease to exist as a unified whole, or the end of a romance. Breakups can also refer to the breaking up of ice in glaciers, but we're not talking about that kind of breakup today. Now, when it comes to breakups, a lot of people like to write breakup letters to their significant other or ex, and I find that this is a very powerful way to share how you're feeling, but I don't think writing a love letter with the intention of giving it to that ex can always be conducive. You know, the first known use of the word breakup actually dates back to the 15th century, but human beings have been separating from romantic connection since the beginning of time. One of the earliest breakup letters dating back to the 6th century in Mesopotamia, which was inscribed on a stone tablet by the Babylonian king Neo. Now, I actually do have the transcription in modern text of what that Babylonian king said from 6 AD on his stone tablet. He literally carved it in stone. And my sources are loose, but what it says right here, this is literally what he wrote to his concubine. He says, "News has reached me via the upper Euphrates that you were visiting with my childhood friend Nisaba. I am devastated by this betrayal, as you are one of my favorite concubines. You have until the end of the month to pick up your flax shawls and sandals, or else I will donate them to the temple of the moon god." This is sourced from the Liberty University of Archaeological Team. I don't know who they are, but I also just did a quick Google search and said, what's the oldest love letter? And that might be the one. So who knows? I didn't write it. Neo did. If you guys know who Neo is, you guys can Google him. But that's another topic for another day. The truth is about breakups is that each and every one of us in this lifetime will probably go through it to some extent. The sad part is that breakups are a topic and scenario in which people will experience the combination of one world falling apart. So if you're going through a breakup right now, it probably feels like your life or world is falling apart because that unity that you had with that other person is no longer there. So it's okay to feel that way. The best way to describe a breakup would be to visually imagine a Venn diagram, two circles touching one another. And when the breakup happens, that middle section was their life and your life together, and now it's separate. So you are fundamentally returning to a new version of the self, which is your world. This isn't going to be something that's familiar or fun or exciting. And so my goal today with this podcast episode is to give you tools to help you get through it and heal faster, or at least understand why you feel the way that you do feel. Because I'll say it, breakups suck. And I'm going to say it multiple times, and you are not alone in this. If you want to bring some numbers into the reality of breakups, the truth is a majority of breakups, when it comes to when it happens, 70% of all relationships that do end within the first year of dating, whereas 30% end within the first 5 years of dating. Statistics say the odds of experiencing a breakup in the first year of dating someone are as high as 70%, whereas the longer you spend time with someone, that number substantially lowers. While married couples often divorce with the odds of almost 50%, the majority of these divorces happen within the first 5 years of marriage and significantly plateau after the 5th year. A fun fact about marriage is that 2.4 million Americans get married every single year. So there still is optimism because that averages out to about 6,200 marriages a single day. But the most popular season to get married is from the months of September to November due to what I believe to be pretty colors in the fall. Like, genuinely, the only explanation I can find as to why people are getting married from September to November is because fall is vibey. Now, the average human being is going to experience 2 to 4 breakups in their total life. And when I say breakups in their total life, I mean like big boy breakups, like really hard, painful ones. Because breakups ultimately create grief. Similar to the experience of losing someone in life. And so the feelings that you're feeling now are not going to be pretty feelings, hence why you feel physical pain. Of these 2 to 4 major breakups that you may go through in life, 15% of people will never experience a breakup ever. Ever. Like, literally ever. And I find that fascinating because that means either 15% of all human beings never find love or they find love immediately. And I'm referencing the Stuff You Should Know podcast on breakups for that quote. So if you want another source, I would look into that podcast as well. But let's keep moving. I'm not a huge grief guy personally, but like I said, the 5 stages of grief are a very real feeling that you will experience in a breakup, starting with the first one being denial, then bargaining, then anger, depression, and finally acceptance. Getting to acceptance, though, is, I don't want to say that's easy, because oftentimes in the 5 stages of grief, you will find yourself bouncing from phase to phase like a roller coaster. One day you can be in bargaining or denial. The next day you can be completely surpassing anger and are completely depressed. And then the next day you're back at bargaining. And then the next day you're at anger. That's completely normal. I want you to know that that is completely normal. There is no set pathway to moving on. It is just a part of the process. And as cliche it is you're going to hear it everywhere you go. If you're looking for information on breakups, time ultimately is the healer. It heals all. As time passes, you will feel better. There are things that you can do to make yourself feel better and overcome this grief. But ultimately, time is the ultimate healer. I mean, it's so cliche. I hate to hear it. You hate to hear it. We all hate to hear it. But it is a universal truth. And honestly, I think it makes me mad when people tell me that time is the ultimate healer, because I'm experiencing my grief right now. I'm experiencing the grief of this loss of a future that I imagined. And now I have to come to the reality that this future that I have imagined in the past is not the future that is happening now. And learning to accept that, and then having someone put the, oh, well, time heals all in your face, is not a fun thing to experience. But it is true. And the closer you come to accepting the reality of change, the closer you come to moving on. Nature is amazing. Breakups are such a reality-bending experience that it often leads to a very profound version of self-discovery. Usually in a breakup, if it's amicable or your partner was respectable a little bit, they often will list a list of grievances that you may have done wrong in the relationship. Cautiously treat these grievances as lessons to learn for the future, things to work on after the relationship, and ways to overcome the pain that you're experiencing now for the future so that you can learn from these things and grow to become a better version of yourself through these things. In this period of self-discovery, the energy that you were putting into the relationship can now be put fully into you. The love that you were giving that other person must and foremost be put into you. This is the most important part to moving on, letting go, and becoming a better version of yourself. It is important that in this time of trauma and grief and sorting out your feelings and experiencing the physical loss of losing this person, you do not go down the destructive pathway. A lot of people in breakups tend to go down 2 routes. There's the route of destruction and doubt, where you become a worse version of yourself and you continue to live in this pain for an extended period of time. And then there's the path of growth and overcoming this grief and experiencing human adversity. Humans are and always will be adverse and adaptable to the environment that they put themselves in. My best advice that I can give you right now is to get out of the house. Do not consume drugs or alcohol People in the destructive category are going to try to numb the pain. That's drugs, alcohol, other people, hurting other people along the way. And then there's the higher road. There's the road of, I'm going to actually feel my feelings. I'm going to experience them, and I'm going to learn from them so that I can not only prevent this heartbreak from happening again, but also so I can become a version of myself that I actually genuinely love just as much as I love that other person. Because I can guarantee you right now, you probably don't feel loved. You might feel abandoned, and that is completely normal to feel. But you must now do yourself the service of loving yourself as much as you love that person, if not more, because you deserve it. A common question people tend to think about or ask is, what do I do when I think about my ex being with somebody else in any circumstance, whether they're on a date or being a bit more romantic with them? And what I like to say, this is the best advice I think I can give on this, is you need to take that thought, that visual, that vision that you have of them with another person, and understand that the way that you're viewing them right now is that you're viewing them as above you. You're putting them on a pedestal. So what you need to do is you need to either raise yourself up to their level in your mind or take them down to your level in your mind, and understand that this thought of them being with somebody else is inevitable. It sucks. But it is a reality that humans need connection, and you too could be with somebody down the road. So what you do is you take that thought of them with someone else, romantically or on a date with someone, you put it in your palm, you visually look at that thought, you experience the emotions that you're feeling, and then you close your hand around that thought. You take it, and then you throw it away. You literally physically throw it away, because that thought is no longer serving you. It never served you to begin with, but your subconscious is bringing it up because it knows that it hurts you a little bit. And your subconscious wants you to examine it and examine why it hurts you, so that you can experience the pain safely and then move forward knowing that it no longer affects you. It sucks looking at these things, but the reality is that you're growing through it. You can't control what your ex is doing, and you never will be able to do that. And when you can let go of that control, or that idea of control, you begin to start to feel free, and you start to heal. And that's the best part about it, because you learn. Now, to the people that do or will get back together with their ex, there are two very important things that you have to know. And that is that if both of you believe that people can change, and both of you are willing to talk about the things that went wrong in the relationship prior to you breaking up, you might be fine. But if you continue to repeat the cycle of what you were in, that will inevitably lead to it ending again. So you have to not just look at the good memories, but look at the bad memories, and essentially say what they are with your partner for what they are. But don't focus on that. Because if you do focus on that, you're probably not going to get back together with them. The most important thing that you can do right now is to heal and move on. And if it does come back, if it's meant to be, it will be. As cheesy as it sounds, it's true. So focus on yourself right now. Don't worry about getting back together with him, and let time do its thing. Oftentimes in breakups, you're going to find yourself consuming art, specifically music, movies, literature, poetry, books. A lot of people don't think that art deserves the credit that it gets most of the time until they experience a loss of grief or pain. Breakups, for this instance, have given us some of the greatest art in the world. For instance, Taylor Swift's entire career was started and continues to be built on breakups. And I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people that really like Taylor Swift. I like some of her songs too, and I like them more when I'm going through grief or breakups. I feel like the emotions that I'm experiencing and the emotions you're experiencing have been felt before, and thankfully we have such a vast history of human art to experience and enjoy in this time. Shakespeare, one of the finest playwrights to ever exist, wrote a play called Romeo and Juliet. I'm not saying or hoping that you and your ex are like the Capulets and the Montagues, but what I am saying is that watching that play or movie while you're sad hits on such a profoundly human level that speaks to you in ways you can't understand when you're not going through it. Personally, I like to listen to a lot of music. One of my favorite quotes when it comes to describing songs about heartbreak or about emotions in general is that a song is a little nugget of emotion that allows you to experience subconscious feelings that you've been bottling up for an extended period of time. So, for instance, if you listen to a sad song and then at the end of the sad song you cry, that's because you subconsciously have been searching for an outlet to experience that emotion and you haven't found it. And the song itself has been an avenue to allow you to release that feeling that you've been keeping inside. And that is why art, podcasts, books, music, movies, television, that is why it matters so much and why we must continue to make and create things like this, because it helps other people. That is why I do the podcast, essentially. That's why I interview people and have them share words before they leave. But we should keep going because we haven't gotten to the top of the hill yet. Hello there, mister. You're a good boy. Good morning. Did you get that? Now, there's been a lot of things that I've said today, but I think one of the more important things that I haven't said to you yet is that you, first and foremost, must forgive yourself. You must forgive yourself for what happened in the relationship, the way that you may have poorly treated that other person, the way that that person may have poorly treated you, and you must understand that nobody is perfect at the end of the day. We can continue to aspire and try to be better versions of ourselves all the time. We also may not do that, and that's also completely fine. But the most important thing is that you are forgiven and you can forgive yourself. It's easier said than done. But relationships are always going to be hard. It's not going to be something that is always easy. It's not going to be something that is love and fireworks and positive feelings all the time. It is going to be work. My grandparents have been married for 53 years. And if I were to ask my grandma if it was sunshine and rainbows for the last 53 years, she would say no, but she wouldn't trade it for the world. I can promise you that what you're going through right now is, you're not alone in this, and you must forgive yourself. Because if you're being hard on yourself now, while life is already insanely hard and you're already feeling the most intense form of feelings that you can feel, it's just going to make the pain exponentially worse. So right now, give yourself some grace and understand that this will pass, but you have to go through it with grace and forgiveness for yourself. And hopefully you can get to a point where you can also forgive your ex, because they're not perfect either. And you might be surprised to find out that they might be going through a very similar path that you're going on in the healing journey. We as humans heal similarly, despite how unique and different every situation we have lived through is. There's this metaphor that I really attached to when I was going through a breakup in high school, and every single time I found myself in the season of the breakup, this metaphor has rung true to me every single time. So I would like to share that metaphor with you, if you don't mind. Life is a constant season of hikes. We constantly are climbing up different mountains through hard rocks and plants and vegetation and growth, and we get to the top and we get a look out across the amazing view and take it all in. And when you're up at the top of the mountain, what you start to realize is that it is the most beautiful thing that you have ever seen in your life. But what you also come to realize is that you can't stay at the top for too long, because the higher up you get, the more you start to realize that there are other people on mountains even higher up than you. And you say, how do I get there? How do I get to the top of that mountain? And you look down and you realize that the journey to get to the top of that next mountain is thick and dense and full of brush and weeds and animals and dangerous things, full of vegetation and growth. What you realize is that at the top of the mountain, everything is dead and dry and cold, and you can't stay in the cold for too long, So you work your way back down the mountain to get to that next peak in life. But the magic is that all of the growth happens in the valley. All of the things that prep you to get to that next peak in life happen while you're hiking through the vegetation, the pain, the trauma, the growth. And I've always found that that metaphor not only physically speaks true, but emotionally speaks true, spiritually speaks true, and has helped me heal as a person when I'm experiencing immense amount of pain. And often, most of my emotional pain comes from breakups. So, whatever season you're going through, just know that you're probably in the valley right now. And that there is a peak that you are building up to. And you may not be able to see through the fog and the dense forest and the greenery, but I promise you that when you get to the top, it will be beautiful, and you will get to the top. My favorite quote that I've been saying to myself in these past few days, weeks, is right now, in this season of the breakup, you need to try to find a way of being that doesn't feel like you're trying to be anything at all. This has been Brett Gaffney with A Word Before We Leave, and I hope that you too can get through this today. Thank you so much. This one's for the people that made it to the end. Thanks for watching.
Nice.